Welcome 32 at everybody. TJ Wengert here for 32 Beat Writers. This is another episode of Beyond the Tape. And yes, I am a little bit of a shill or, got bills to pay. Back-to-back episodes are going to be mock drafts, which, to some that might be a little lazy, but if you're familiar with me back from my own personal YouTube channel before coming to 32, I did a lot of mock drafts, and I'm a bit of a geek for exploring different team building processes, and then, the if this, then that type of hypotheticals we can run into in, draft season, but also just the off season in and of itself. I've been saying that for years, and, it was funny, Trevor Sikkema on NFL Stock Exchange was saying something similar in one of their recent episodes. So I'm not alone in that. Plenty more mock drafts still to come this draft cycle here on 32, but today we get our very first 3-rounder, and it's a 3-rounder with trades. So let's go ahead and jump right into it because, man, I've got a ton that I'm trying to do off the top here to kind of frame the mindsets that maybe these teams have going into this mock draft. So let's start with a little bit of an odd one. We're going to do some player for pick trades. I'm going to have Derek Carr going to the Tennessee Titans for pick 118. It comes from Seattle, and we're going to work on this. Tennessee, keep this in mind. 2 picks in the top 100 does not fly for where that roster is at, in my current opinion. And I think Derek Carr, the Saints could cut him post June 1, save $30 million. Brian Callahan was a quarterback coach in Vegas for a little bit, working with Derek Carr. I think there's a world where, you if you're the Titans, you make the move for Carr. Spoiler alert, we're going to trade down from 1. We might do more trade downs after that, not to give away too much. And then you roll with Derek Carr for a year, reevaluate the 2026 class, reevaluate where you are with Carr. And then, honestly, there's a world where you could draft a Garrett Nussmeier or a Drew Aller or even an Arch Manning if he decides to declare in 26. And there's still a world where you might want to have Derek Carr start for you at the beginning of the season. So this is one that makes a lot of sense to me. There's a connection with Callahan and Carr, and we're actually going to be having some more trades here. The other big ticket name that's out there right now is, of course, Myles Garrett. I'm going to have Myles Garrett go. For right now, I'm going to have it be 2 1s. Not entirely sure that they'll get 2 1s. It might be, 1 this year and a 2. But nevertheless, I look at this team with a ton of cap space, and they're looking for a difference maker specifically on the edge. The Washington Commanders, this year's first, next year's first, to the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett in exchange. To me, that makes a lot of sense for both sides. The Commanders are entering a winning window. The Browns have, basically left one until they can figure out the quarterback position. So I do think it is time probably to move on from Myles Garrett. All right, 2 more trades to hit off top here. I'm going to have Cooper Kupp going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Found the Steelers a little bit quicker. I'm going to do it for a 4th-round pick. Ultimately, I think that's about the going price for Cooper Kupp. The Los Angeles Rams are going to have to eat part of his salary anyways. So this is one that I think makes a ton of sense. He's a really good blocker, so it feels like a guy that kind of fits the, ground and pound identity that the Steelers still want to play with. And also, like, the Steelers are in desperate need of getting a number 2 wide receiver. He brings a ton of gravitas, right? Like, we talked to Tez Johnson at the Senior Bowl, and he's talking about, working with Cooper Kupp during the offseason, really trying to get better on those option routes. And, like, that's a dude I want in the building doing the same thing for those Steelers receivers. So 4th-round pick for Cooper Kupp. We're going to go ahead and send that through, and that's going to be part of, the thinking again for why the Steelers are going to go where they go in the 1st round. One more trade I decided to go ahead and squeeze in here, just double checking my notes. Yes, just one more. I'm going to have the Los Angeles Rams then use that pick, and they're still up here, that they just got from Pittsburgh. And I'm going to send it out to Green Bay, and they're going to be able to get their hands on Jaire Alexander. I think Alexander's time in Green Bay has spent, and I've been kind of looking at LA. I don't know what it is, if it's a scheme fit or if it's just a gut feeling. There's something telling me that he wants to leave the cold of Green Bay and make his way over to Los Angeles. Maybe it's Miami, but I think he wants to go play for a warm weather team. So basically the Rams flip Cooper Kupp for Jaire Alexander. And I think that would be pretty exciting, considering that they're going to move on from Kupp anyway. So might as well replace 1 star with another guy who is capable of doing just that. We do have more trades coming in this video. So that's a lot off top. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. At me on Twitter. Do you think those make sense to you? Do you think I'm off base? Love to hear your thoughts there. But we're also going to kick this off with a trade. And boom, PFF mock draft simulators all over it. I'm going to have the New York Giants moving up to the number 1 overall pick. It'll be the 3rd rounder plus next year's 1. Again, if you're the Tennessee Titans, you have 2 picks in the top 100. You've got to get some more assets there. So you get pick 65. You move down just a couple spots. Again, we'll see what we do once we get there at pick number 3. But then you also have ammunition for next year. Let's say Derek Carr gets you a 7-win team. Okay, maybe that takes you out of the top 5 of the draft order. But it'll probably have you somewhere, like Dallas, 7 wins this year. They're picking 12th. So let's just say you're in and around that ballpark, and now you have an extra first-round pick to play with. Kind of like the Texans a couple years ago. They used their extra first-round pick and some extra assets they had to move up and get an extra top 3 pick. It's not out of the realm of possibility the Titans could do just that in 2026. 97% chance that this trade goes through, but I'm going to go ahead and just force it for simplicity, and that puts the New York Giants on the clock. And to no one's surprise, Cam Ward is going to be the number 1 overall pick. I think he brings a lot of the arm talent that Brian Daboll is looking for. Pairing him up with Malik Neighbors sounds super exciting to me. This is a team that is, Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll kept their job because I think, the Mara family acknowledged, hey, we didn't let them draft their quarterback. So this is the year where they get that chance. And I think moving up to 1 is going to be, something that they certainly consider. Cleveland Browns, fresh off trading Myles Garrett. This one makes a ton of sense. Abdul Carter. A lot of people are going to have him at 1 on their overall big boards. A lot of people like myself are going to have Travis Hunter. I think if you're talking about one guy, one spot, give me Abdul Carter. If we're talking about and you're confident in being able to use Travis Hunter as a dual player, I think ultimately he's the best pure football player this class has to offer. But you move on from Myles Garrett, you get 2 first-round picks, you backfill it with Abdul Carter, keep a strength to strength. I'm not saying he's going to be Myles Garrett off rip, but he certainly has the potential to be a top 5 edge rusher in this year's, or really in the NFL as a whole with his initial first step, his bend, and again, a guy who's only played the position for 1 year. He's still getting a lot better at that spot. And I know I spoiled this a little bit, and PFF's all over it once again. I'm going to have the Las Vegas Raiders giving up pick 68 as well as a future 3rd-round pick to move up to the number 3 overall pick. You'll see trade like to be accepted. It about adds up on the draft tech, trade chart. It's based on the Jimmy Johnson trade chart. So if you have an issue with that trade chart, that's totally fine. But that is kind of the basis that I'm using for these trades. And with that, the Las Vegas Raiders will come up and they will draft their quarterback of the future. It's Jaire Sanders. He is my quarterback 2. But at this point, the 2 quarterbacks I would take in the first round are off the board. And if you're John Spytek, you're Tom Brady, and you're Pete Carroll, an owner becoming more involved, new head coach in that area, first-time GM, I think they're willing to give up some assets to go get their quarterback of the future. I have heard John Spytek, the new GM, is kind of a scout, not super worried about analytics and things like that. So maybe this is the guy to kind of engineer, hey, we're willing to give up a couple of picks to be able to go get our guy. And there's been a ton of links to Vegas and Jaire Sanders. So that one to me makes a whole lot of sense as well. And that leaves the New England Patriots taking Travis Hunter, another mock where we do this. I hate to be repetitive, but it just makes a ton of sense. And, go BPA there at 4. You could go O-line, you could trade back, but the 2 quarterbacks are off the board. So I don't know how many trade options are really there. Unless there's another team that's chomping at the bit to take Travis Hunter and you're willing to move back. That is certainly a possibility. But here, just take the best football player available to you. You can play him at, corner opposite Christian Gonzalez, have a true shutdown duo there. This is one of the landing spots that, although I like him more at corner and he's going to the combine listed as a defensive back, I wouldn't hate the idea of New England drafting him and just letting him play receiver. And that's kind of the flexibility you have with a player like this. He could be your wide receiver to start, get to that second contract. All of a sudden you have a huge need at corner. And he's good enough to go flip the other side of the ball. Again, I'm in the full-time corner, 15, 20 snaps, a week at wide receiver. I think he's able to do that. He showcased that this year at Colorado. It's just going to come down to personal preference and where you want to use him. And some of it's going to come down to roster construction. So again, this would be one of the spots where I don't hate Hunter playing full-time wide receiver. Then we get to the Jags. Speaking of wide receiver, side note, I love Mason Graham. I've mocked that a ton here, but I'm going to go with Tetairoa McMillan. I think he's going to be right around 5 on my big board. Like, this is going to be about the spot where I have him ranked up when I'm stacking all these players. And you got Liam Cohen coming from Tampa Bay. He's used to having Mike Evans and a number 2 receiver, whether it was, Chris Godwin, then he gets hurt, then it's Jalen McMillan. You got Brian Thomas Jr. there. Tetairoa McMillan would be a fantastic compliment. Bigger body, can play the prototypical X. That frees up a lot of fun stuff you can do with BTJ. And then also the yards after the catch ability. Some people will comp Tet to Mike Evans. To me, I see a little bit more Drake London than I see Mike Evans. But either way, I don't think you're totally off base one way or another. Good route runner. Again, can play that prototypical X. Sure-handed. Really nice after the catch as well. Just, kind of the clear cut. Even more than Travis Hunter. Tet to me, wide receiver 1 in this class. And I like Hunter at receiver a lot. He is my corner 1 to go with it, just in case you're new around here. But yeah, I got Hunter wide receiver 2. I really believe in Tet McMillan. I do think he's a top 5 to top 7 player in this year's class, and he is my wide receiver 1. Love the idea of looking at Liam Cohen, going and get that Mike Evans type of guy to complement BTJ and to add reinforcements for Trevor Lawrence. All right, let's get on to the Tennessee Titans after a couple of trade backs. This is eating your veggies right here, right? Like, we're getting extra 3rd-round picks, 2 extra 3rd-round picks in this year's draft. We're getting an extra 3rd next year and an extra 1st. Oh, and we get to draft the best offensive lineman in this year's class. How could you not be excited if you're a Tennessee Titans fan? I know it's not sexy. Nobody likes trading back. But when you look at the nuts and bolts of this, like this is how you build an infrastructure for a team that, again, has 2 top 100 picks. That's just not going to cut it. And then, yes, I know they went first-round tackle last year, but J.C. Latham, I think had some moments. But, Nicholas Petit-Frere is, we've seen that. We tried it. It's not working there at right tackle. Let's flip Latham back over to his college position, and let's give Will Campbell a shot there at left tackle. And all this, of course, under the tutelage of one of the best offensive line coaches in NFL history, in Bill Callahan. So let him make this work. Campbell, I don't think, needs a lot of coaching, but he is this Swiss Army knife. He can play guard. He can play tackle. I think they've already got that left guard spot figured out with Peter Skoronski. Again, I think you flip Latham over the other side, give Campbell a shot to prove that he can play left tackle the next level. The college tape says that he can, and let Bill Callahan work his magic. Plus Lloyd Cushenberry there at center. All of a sudden that offensive line starts to really fall together nicely in Tennessee. All right, and then if this happens, dude, I don't think the Jets wait a moment for this. Pairing Mason Graham up with Quinnen Williams would be lethal. I was kind of hoping Graham would take that Quinnen Williams step forward this year. Didn't quite happen, and I think really it just comes down to the arm length not ideal, but he's got everything else you want in a top 10 potential pick at the defensive interior position. Very quick hands, very quick feet, wide array of moves that he can use. Again, quick hands to get offensive linemen off of him, quick hand swipes that is. And also good power to go with it, so jack of all trades. You play him at 3 tech, line him up next to Quinnen Williams, and just let that front four get after opposing offenses in New York. To the Carolina Panthers, I've loved going with Jalen Walker, probably a little too much. I've had some Panthers fans say, please, can you show me a little something different? So we'll do something a little different here. Shamar Stewart, I think right now I'm going to have my edge 3, just ahead of James Pierce. And I like both those guys a ton. And they do it in different ways. So if you like James Pierce here, I'm totally fine with that if you're a Panthers fan and want Pierce. I'm going to go Shamar Stewart. This is a team that could use reinforcements both on the inside and on the edge. And I think Shamar Stewart, you could play him out wide on early downs, move him inside in passing situations or third longs, fourth quarter. A lot of flexibility that comes with Shamar Stewart. Ton of, length and power in his game, an explosive first step for someone that big. A lot of tools to work with Shamar Stewart. Just needs to become a better finisher, and that kind of felt like a Texas A&M problem across that entire D-line. So is it him? Is it how they're coaching these guys? TBD. You'd have to interview him. You have to get him in the room to get a better feel for that. But I love the tools. I love the traits. I think Shamar Stewart, don't rule out that he does go somewhere in the top 10. All right, to the New Orleans Saints here at 9. This is another one of those things where I don't think they would think too long about this. If Will Johnson's there, if Ted McMillan's gone, they might go edge still. I wouldn't doubt that, but I would go Will Johnson here in this spot, get that Marshawn Lattimore replacement. Also, Paulson Adebo, set to hit free agency. So a lot of potential turnover in that cornerback room. Go get a, surefire, one of the higher floor players in this year's class. You're going to hear the Pat Surtain comps. I don't know if never say never. I just don't see defensive player of the year type of potential with Will Johnson. I don't know if the high end is there, but I do think he is a high floor player with a high IQ and a great understanding of his athleticism. But I am curious to see what the 40 time looks like, what all those measurables are really at once we get to the combine. All right, 10th overall pick. Let's have some fun, Bears fans. This is a team that needs to eat a lot of vegetables, but we'll do that in the second round, and we're going to have some fun here, giving Ben Johnson, the new head coach of the Chicago Bears, an absolute weapon in Ashton Jeanty. He's just a better version of DeAndre Swift in so many different ways. And I think Roschon Johnson plus Ashton Jeanty, you can see a little David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs in that backfield combo right there. So how could you not get fired up about this? We are going to go into your offensive line. We are going to go defensive line in the second round. There's plenty of reasons to want to do that here at 10, but let's have some fun. Let's mix it up. Haven't done GT to the Bears just yet. RB1, get him in the top 10. It's always tough for me in these mock drafts. Where's that first running back go? But I really like GT. He's going to be one of 3 blue chippers I have in this class. And we got him going top 10 here to the Chicago Bears. And we're going to do that other, the dirty work later on for Chicago. All right, pick 11 here. I'm going to stay steady here. I'm going to go Calvin Banks Jr. I think you play him at left guard. And then when Trent Williams retires, you just slide him over to play left tackle. There's going to be a conversation there, tackle versus guard for Banks. I think he's got good enough tape to, kind of like Will Campbell. Like, he hasn't shown you he can't hold up at tackle, so why mess up a good thing here? But in this situation, one, it's just a great scheme fit in that wide zone stuff that Shanahan wants to run. Him as a guard right next to Trent Williams, like, why would you not be running stretch left every time with Christian McCaffrey, right? So I really like that just from a schematic standpoint, but also the passing the torch timeline here works out. I'd be willing to say Trent Williams a year, maybe 2 more. I don't know. He's kind of an ageless wonder, so I don't want to put a timeline on, Trent Williams and eat my words here. But a year or 2 more Trent Williams, and then you get to that back half of the rookie contract with Kelvin Banks, and you have that clean succession plan already in the building. I think that's a wise route to take if you're the 49ers. Then we get to the Dallas Cowboys here at 12. You know what? Went defensive line last time. I went on the edge, but this time I'm going to go with Walter Nolan. I could see Osa Odighizuwa fetching a bag this offseason, man. He's become a better player year over year, and Dallas might not, be willing to go that high of a price, especially in this type of defensive line class. And also Matt Eberflus coming over to play or to be the defensive coordinator in Dallas. Year over year, we've been talking whether it was in Indy and then he got DeForest Buckner. That's the 3 tech that is kind of pivotal to everything he wants to do on the defensive line. He got that in Indy, went to Chicago, drafted Gervon Dexter, drafted Zach Pickens. None of it really formulated to be that game wrecker on the inside that he needs. I think Walter Nolan checks all those boxes. That's why I was, nonstop last year. I, kind of mocked Byron Murphy II to the Chicago Bears. They're in the top 10. And, he was one of my favorite players, my top defensive player in last year's class, Byron Murphy, that is, now the Seattle Seahawks. I just felt like that's the 3 tech that Eberflus is looking for, and maybe could have used, not to play revisionist history here. Who knows how it would have played out in Chicago otherwise? But him going to Dallas, if Osa Odighizuwa is gone, I think Walter Nolan again checks every box you're looking for if you're Matt Eberflus, looking for that interior disruptor. And again, reason I decided to pivot from edge to IDL here. You do still have Marshawn Kneeland. He did get hurt last year, but that's a second-round pick investment here. And Kneeland, you also have a top 100 pick and Sam Williams coming back. So they've already invested a little bit at edge, so shifting my focus a little bit towards the interior guys. All right, then we get to the Miami Dolphins. We got another trade for you, folks. Hearing Sean Payton talking about, I think we need a joker, that it had to spark this. This is about right when it comes to the point charts. I think I added in a pick swap. Teams are starting to become pretty keen on getting pick swaps, even if it's, 50 pick difference here, or 51 pick difference to be exact. Just having the swing of the bat, I think, is something that teams are becoming more and more conscious of. Again, this about adds up when it comes to the draft tech point charts. The Dolphins also are a team that could use some more assets, so fetching an extra 3rd-round pick goes a long way. And then the Denver Broncos, who they kind of figured out that wide receiver room. Sean Payton talking to Kay Adams, we need a joker. GT off the board. Who's the next best joker guy in this class? No doubt about it. It's Tyler Warren. He can play inline. He's a good enough blocker to do that. Play him in the slot, play him out wide, take direct snaps. There's not much you can't do with an athlete like a Tyler Warren. And, of course, Sean Payton, history with Jimmy Graham. I mean, it's hard not to get excited about what this type of fit would mean. It would certainly take the Broncos being aggressive, but I don't think Sean Payton, and, really, he's the guy calling the strings when it comes to this. Not as much George Patton, but that's okay. Sean Payton, I think, would be willing to move on from a 3rd-round pick to go get a guy like Tyler Warren. But it's a good tight end class, so I could certainly be wrong. All right, let's get on to the Indianapolis Colts. With new defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo coming over, cornerback play in Cincinnati was certainly a bit of a kryptonite for that unit. I could see where he's like, hey, guys, get me a shutdown corner. And I like Juju Brents. He was one of my guys in that draft class. Kenny Moore, still a rock-solid nickel player. But I think Jahdae Barron, just his comfortability in zone coverage, you see it all over his tape. He was the best zone coverage corner in college football last year. So love that addition. And Lou Anarumo will play some man too. And Jahdae Barron can hold up in man coverage, but it's a lot of cover 3, a lot of cover 4, some cover 2. Like Lou Anarumo is known for mixing it up. And I just love the versatility Jahdae Barron brings to that. And also we'll see what happens with, Kenny Moore, but Jahdae Barron's a weapon as a blitzer. We saw Lou Anarumo use Mike Hilton in that type of role. Again, that might be more Kenny Moore, but even from far, outside corner alignment, you could use Jahdae Barron to come up and be creative in your blitz packages too. So just a guy that kind of checks a lot of different boxes for me as a fit for Lou Anarumo. A lot of other teams, honestly, here in the top 16 that could take a shot on Jahdae Barron. I think he's a good fit here at 15 too, but the Falcons have got to go edge. And that leads us perfectly into what I'm going to do here with the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to go with Jalen Walker. Got him off the board here. Trevor Sickham was, mortal enemy. Just kidding there. But Jalen Walker, kind of talking about like Tyler Warren as that joker of an offense. I view Jalen Walker as the same thing. He's a number 5 player on my big board right now, and I'm starting to feel like I'm the low man. Field Yates has him at 5. Dane Brugler has him at 3. He's a really fun player to me, man. And yes, I know we haven't found him that, or in college, he never found that true, call it a true position, right? But I love the edge snaps that he gets. Super explosive off the ball, ability to turn speed to power. Yes, he wins by out-athleting people as an edge rusher right now, but I'm willing to start with that and figure out what more, where the room to grow is at. And also using him as an off-ball linebacker. Like we live in this age, day and age where stunts and twists are starting to be used across the league at a higher clip. Sim pressures, right? Like we talk about Tyler Warren being a joker on offense. I think Jalen Walker can be a joker on defense, be this agent of chaos, really, quoting, Heath Ledger's Joker, funny enough. I think that's kind of how I look at Jalen Walker. Move him around, play him at off-ball some, blitz him from there, have him drop into coverage, use him as a QB spy like Georgia did, rush him off one edge, rush him off the other edge, put him on the inside, stunt and twist, move him around. Use him as a true agent of chaos and just keep offenses guessing. I think Raheem Morris is a smart enough defensive coordinator to figure out what that right role for Jalen Walker is. Again, top 5 player on my board. I think he should go a lot higher than this, but again, we're doing all these mock drafts to explore possibilities. What if this happens? What if that happens? And, one of the, possibilities here is, how far could Jalen Walker fall? I really think about 15. I think the Falcons aren't letting that guy by him. All right, let's get on to the Arizona Cardinals. This is another pick that I really like the fit. Kenneth Grant. This team needs some juice on the inside. Specifically, they need a nose tackle. And I think Kenneth Grant, day one, going to be an impact player against the run, but a special athlete at a really big frame too, 6'5", 6'3", 340. There's something to be excited about there with Kenneth Grant. He runs a little hot and cold as a pass rusher, but when it's hot, there's reason to get excited about him from that standpoint. So work in progress as a pass rusher, but love what he brings as a run defender. Pair him up with guys like Dennis Gardeck, VGO, Jalari, Darius Robinson, their first round pick last year. That defensive line starts to take shape pretty quickly in Arizona. All right, pick number 17, my boy Mike Green going to come off the board, one of the biggest winners out of the Senior Bowl. This is just an ass kicker for the Cincinnati Bengals, and they need one more guy. Whether Hendrickson's there or not, they need one more guy, which, by the way, really thought about having Trey Hendrickson go to the Lions in this. That was one trade I decided not to pull the trigger on. But I'm going to say the Bengals kind of figure it out between T and between Hendrickson, and then go ahead and get some reinforcements, whether it's James Pierce Jr. or Mike Green. Like both these guys a ton. Green just comes from a smaller school. The arm length's not quite as ideal, but everything else, man, power in his game. You see it in that rep against Josh Conerly, which Conerly's just a little caught off guard, and he's playing other side of the offensive line, but neither here nor there. But also the spin move he hits against Ohio State, the arm over move he hits in that same game. Like, there are an abundance of reps you can point to for Mike Green to be like, yeah, that guy's an NFL-ready pass rusher. So go ahead and take a shot on there, a shot on him here at 17, him or Pierce as that Trey Hendrickson compliment. I love it. Absolutely love it for the Cincinnati Bengals. All right, Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to go with Armand Membu here. This one's kind of twofold. Either Abe Lucas stays healthy and Membu is going to be an awesome right guard for you and well worth taking him here at 18, or Abe Lucas is going to continue to battle injuries and you already have the guy to step into that spot and honestly be a potential upgrade, right? Like, I liked Lucas, but he was, a third-round pick for a reason. Membu to me is definitely a first-round guy. So naturally there, I think you're just getting a potential upgrade at one of two spots. Perfect world again. Maybe Membu's a guard because Abe Lucas is healthy and he's kicking butt. But I can see a more realistic world where Lucas battles injuries again. Membu takes that job and doesn't let Lucas back into the picture. But either way, Seattle gets an offensive line upgrade that they're really looking for. At pick number 19, this is where I promise I don't hate James Pierce Jr. by any stretch of the imagination. He's my edge 4. I really like it. And it's close between him and Mike Green for that edge 4, edge 5. I mean, it's an absurd group this year. It really is. But this couldn't have played out any better for the Bucs. And really in this world, maybe it's Pierce who goes to Carolina at 8, and Shamar Stewart goes at 15, then to the Falcons, and this is Jalen Walker. Instead, it's like, no matter what, this is the draft class for the Bucs because they need edge help, and there's going to be one of these guys that should go a lot higher that ultimately will fall into their lap, whether it's Green, Jalen Walker, Shamar Stewart, or James Pierce Jr. One of these guys is going to fall lower than they should, all to the benefit of the Bucs. They just need to find a dude. They need to find a guy to get double-digit sacks, a year. And they really haven't had that type of game wrecker, if you want to call it that, since Shaq Barrett first got there and on that Super Bowl run. It's been a big missing spot of that defense. I think James Pierce Jr., a little smaller, a little bit thinner than maybe you would like, but I think he definitely fills the void of like third and long, need a guy to make a play here. James Pierce Jr. steps up and he makes plays in that plus 20+% pass rush win rate. Like, this guy is a pass rush winner, and that's what the Bucs need. So we get back to the Miami Dolphins after trading back, and this really couldn't have worked out any better. This team needs interior offensive line help. Gray Zabel at the Senior Bowl looked great at left guard, center, right guard. Figure out who your best 5 is for the Dolphins. Figure out where the other 4 are most comfortable, and wherever the weak link is, Gray Zabel, plug him in there. So, you've extended Austin Jackson. You just drafted Patrick Paul to back up Teron Armstead. So let's say those 2 tackle spots are off limits. Again, figure out the 2 other best interior offensive linemen. Where they're weakest, plugs Gray Zabel in there because he looked great at all 3 spots at the Senior Bowl. Love the movement skills. Love the grip strength. He's a perfect fit there in Miami. To the Pittsburgh Steelers, again, remember, we made the trade for Cooper Kupp, so I am not going to go with the wide receiver route here. Instead, I'm going to take a little bit of a risky move here and go Ben Morrison. If the medical can check out, he's a guy that should definitely go in the first round. Because, hip fluidity, foot speed, his eyes, there's a ton to like, especially in man coverage, but also a fluid enough athlete to where he'll be just fine in zone coverage as well. But But the Pittsburgh Steelers, 5th highest rate of man coverage last year. It's a little bit of high variance with JPJ. They need a guy on the other side, right? Like the rest of that, outside of JPJ and Minkah Fitzpatrick, and then, Sean Elliott was a good player, but he's old and he's on a 1-year deal. So, like, taking him out of the equation. The rest of that secondary, I think, needs some major overhaul. Ben Morrison plus JPJ, that's a potential shutdown tandem, especially for a team that wants to play a lot of man coverage like the Pittsburgh Steelers do. To the Los Angeles Chargers, let's go with Luther Burden III here. I mean, the yak ability that this guy brings to an offense paired up with an offense that already has one of the better route runners in the league in Ladd McConkey. I mean, that's tailor-made. It doesn't get much better than that. This does kind of phase out Quentin Johnston out of the lineup because right now the best thing he brings to the table is his yards after the catch ability. But let's be honest with ourselves. Burden does that even better. So, like, I wouldn't let a past first-round pick that this regime didn't make stop you from drafting a better player in Luther Burden. Plus, he's just a better receiver. There's just more nuance in his route running, especially in the intermediate and short game, running those inside slants, running those dagger routes, but also enough long speed to be used in the slot as a slot fade guy. You see that all over his tape too. Ability to get behind secondaries. So, yeah, he's just an upgrade over everyone else that's not named Ladd McConkey in that wide receiver room in one way or another there for the Chargers. So I love Luther Burden. If he falls in their lap, that's a tough one to pass on. He also would make a lot of sense for the Broncos if they stick and pick at 20. He'd also be a great Pittsburgh Steeler at 21. So I've done that in the past. So a lot of possibilities here. You get into the late teens, early 20s, feels like, ooh, Luther Burden's available. Watch out. It won't be for much longer. All right, let's get on to the Green Bay Packers here at 23. I'm going to go with Zaire Thomas. This is the type of man coverage corner Jeff Hafley's looking for. In this mock, we trade Jaire Alexander, so we're going to backfill that with Zaire Thomas. Love what he brings to the table as in regards to his size and his athleticism. And again, Florida State runs a lot of man coverage. Zaire Thomas checks the box there from a man coverage standpoint. All right, let's get on to the Minnesota Vikings. Let's have a little bit of fun here, folks. I'm going to go with Caleb Johnson. Right now, Amari Hampton's my RB2, but it really comes down to zone or gap. What do you want to run? That really could be the determining factor of Hampton versus Johnson. For Minnesota, it's inside zone, outside zone. And Caleb Johnson will be awesome in both, right? Long speed to be a big play threat, but also great vision, willing to lower his shoulder and fall forward. Really does bring 3-down potential there. At least talking the 3rd down short yardage stuff. He's a potential nice weapon there. May leave a little bit to be desired in regards to like pass protection and pass catching. But even that, I think that's an area where he can get better. He certainly has the frame to be a solid pass blocker too. So potential 3-down option here. And we're kind of in this day and age where there's not a whole lot of bell cow running backs. So if you don't bring 3-down value, it's kind of hard to get you in the first round. But that's why you'll see these mock drafts. I get Amari and Hampton in there and I get Caleb Johnson in there because I do think one other guy should go in the first round because those three, to me, especially the top two, GT plus Hampton, those guys, no doubt in my mind, 3-down value, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd down. They should be on the field. Johnson, with some work in the pass protection stuff and the pass catching stuff, I think he can certainly get there. But everything else, he checks a lot of boxes and would love to see him be the Aaron Jones replacement for that offense. And we saw how adding Aaron Jones kind of opened it up and made that offense more balanced. I think Caleb Johnson's an even better version of what they could potentially have then. So love it. A lot of other positions to fill there for Minnesota. And this is another team that should probably trade back from 24. So we'll probably do that in the next mock because this team needs more top 100. I think they only have 4 picks this entire draft, if my memory serves. So don't be surprised if Minnesota trades back. And even if they do, they should definitely add a running back into that room. Anyways, let's move this on to the Houston Texans. I'm going to go with Emeka Egbuka. Once again, I hate doubling up in back-to-back mocks, but we don't know what's going to happen long-term with Tank Dell. I would assume Stephon Diggs is gone. So no matter what happens there, Egbuka brings inside-out flexibility. He comes back, works the football, a sharp route runner, just does the little things right. He's a good blocker too. So and I think he's going to test just fine at Indy. Probably not going to wow you, but maybe he does wow you with the 3-cone. That wouldn't shock me whatsoever. Just like JSN kind of like lit up the charts and lit up Indy with that 3-cone number. I think it was like sub 6'4". That's absurd, but pretty sure it was like 6'3", 6'7". But I think Egbuka, maybe not that elite, but could be in that ballpark. And maybe that's, his moment to shine, his 15 minutes of fame, so to speak, at Indy. But just a rock solid player, one of the higher floor prospects in this year's class. Love plugging him into that Houston offense. To the Los Angeles Rams, Alaric Jackson had a nice little bounce back year last year, but I could see a world where they're not able to bring him back, and I would love to see what they could do with a Josh Connolly Jr., one of the younger prospects in this year's class, but huge step in the right direction in regards to being a pass protector this year at Oregon. We got to interview him at the Senior Bowl, and he said the biggest reason why, just more coordinated movements. He got his feet to match his hands, and you can see it on his tape. Plus, you're seeing him develop more play strength, right? This guy's only 20 years old. He's still coming into his adult body, but he's starting to make some headway there. And the Rams have done a really nice job of drafting and developing guys. So I'd love to see if they could do the same thing with Connerly, because, man, he looks like he's on the up and up, and there's a reason why there's conversation. Should he be OT1? Does he have the highest ceiling of any of these guys? He just might. And, getting here at 26 feels like some really nice value if you're the LA Rams. And, again, maybe Lamar Jackson's gone. Maybe he's not. Even if you bring him back, could you cross-train Josh Connerly over at right tackle and have him be Rob Havenstein's replacement? I wouldn't rule that out either. All right, let's get on to the Baltimore Ravens. This is one that I don't remember what podcast floated it out, but I love this fit. I've been kind of going receiver for the Ravens in the second, third round, but I think Golden brings a little bit more of that outside X potential than some of the guys who are available typically in the late second or even in the third round for the Ravens. So I love this. Matthew Golden, one more receiver. You play him on the outside, and then you rotate Bateman and Flowers between the other outside spot and in the slot. That's a wide receiver trio that gives Todd Monken an abundance to play with and no shortage of weapons for Lamar Jackson, who, like, at this point, we need to start considering taking away weapons. 2-time MVP, maybe should have been a 3-time winner of that award. He's just too good. Maybe we can start taking away things from the Baltimore Ravens. But jokes aside, offensive tackles certainly could be in play here. Ronnie Stanley, is he a Kansas City Chief? Is he going back to Baltimore? A lot of things to be figured out there. You could certainly go Josh Simmons there. Wouldn't hate it, but man, Golden, Flowers, Bateman, sign me up for that. I would love to see that wide receiver trio for Todd Monken and Lamar Jackson. To the Detroit Lions here at 28, I'm going to go with Myles Williams. This is just a guy that can move all around the defensive line, especially with DJ Reader getting banged up. Like, I think there is some added value to a guy that, hey, it's 3rd and 10. We can't put Reader on the field because he's hurt. Well, we'll just slide Myles in and we'll have, X DPR rusher, whether it's James Houston or someone else, be that other edge. So I think he brings a lot of flexibility to that defensive line where you want to line him up. He's an NFL-ready run defender, an abundance of play strength, long arms, good athlete. We just never really got to see him play outside the tackle more often than not, pin his ears back and see what he looks like as a true, if you're getting that NASCAR package, what does he look like in that? And how does that translate to the next level? Georgia just didn't really give him that opportunity, even though they said they would this year. They just really didn't. So that is still TBD for Myles Williams, but he'll blow it up at the combine, and then we'll start, fantasizing about, NASCAR package, Myles Williams might be a freak. So certainly a guy that over the next month or so is probably going to have his stock rise. For most people, I'm pretty firm in where I'm at with Myles Williams. I think he's a first rounder, but I kind of like him in the 28 range more than maybe say 8th overall. Let's get on to the Cleveland Browns. Once again, this comes courtesy of the, of course, Myles Garrett trade. So they're picking here at 29. And this is where, keep him in state. Josh Simmons. Yes, he's coming off an injury, but if not for that injury, he might have been OT1, especially depending on how you classify Campbell and Calvin Banks. But yeah, this is perfect. Jedrick Wills is a free agent. I think they can get better there. 4 years plus the 5th-year option worth of control over Josh Simmons here. If you're looking at it from a team standpoint, you're still paying a lot of money to Josh Simmons. Not Josh Simmons. Paying a lot of money to Deshaun Watson. I was trying to see the Browns' previous picks. You're still paying a lot of money to Deshaun Watson and trying to navigate that cap. What helps navigating that cap? Very cheap play at edge, very cheap play at offensive tackle. And that's exactly what we've gotten here in the first round with Abdul Carter and Josh Simmons. All right, let's get on to the Buffalo Bills. Malachi Starks, he's fallen a little bit more in these past few mocks. I don't mean for it to happen that way, but the Bills could definitely get better in the back end. They had this awesome duo for such a long time, and Poyer and Hyde, and that was kind of the staple of that defense. Not that Rapp and Hamlin are bad players, but I think they're players you can upgrade from. And Malachi Starks, I think there, whether it's split safety, playing in the box, playing true over the top, single high free safety, some nickel reps that certainly catch my eye too. Just a guy that just don't overthink it. Get him on the field. He's one of your best 11 defenders. Just figure out where that alignment is and what the call is and get him on the field. You'll be well served by it. So I'd love adding him into the mix. And plus the Bills, they've been willing to use 3 safety sets too. So this doesn't relegate Damar Hamlin or, Taylor Rapp fully to the bench too. You can still use those guys if they want to bring him back and if they want to keep him around in Buffalo. All right, pick 31. Man, I don't know if you guys watched that Super Bowl game, but yeah, Travis Kelce is starting to look his age. And I said last year, and hey, not going to knock him. He was trying to go for the three-peat, and ultimately he made it to a 3rd consecutive Super Bowl, his 4th in the last 5 years. So don't listen. Hey, Travis Kelce, if you're watching this, don't worry about me and talking about this in my own apartment. You've done enough. You made enough right decisions in your career. But in retrospect, retiring with his brother after that Super Bowl, could have been a good way for him to go out. And he's all throughout this year, and finally we saw in the playoffs too. He looks his age, guys. He looks like he's lost not just a step, he's lost a few steps. So how do you potentially replace Travis Kelce, who we're waiting to see what their retirement announcement is as of, Friday, Valentine's Day the 14th. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. how do you offset that? How about Colston Loveland, a guy who is kind of a small tight end, basically a receiver? And Rashee Rice can play inside and out. That could free up some possibilities for not just playing Loveland in line, but moving him in the slot, kind of like they use Kelsey. You could put Loveland out wide like they do with Kelsey from time to time. I mean, if you want to keep a strength to strength, and if Kelsey hangs it up, I don't know if Loveland really falls here to 31, to be honest with you, but if he does, the Chiefs should be heavily, and I mean heavily, considering this move. I really like that as a Kelsey replacement. Let me know if you're a Chiefs fan what you think about it. 32nd pick, cue up the Jesse Pinkman. They can't keep getting away with this. But with Brandon Graham, he's going to retire. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. Like Nick Scorton backfilling that spot, that's perfect. Right now, I think the Purdue tape's better than the A&M tape. But even just the A&M tape, he looks like a Brandon Graham replacement, right? Like win with power, win with arm length, bull rush, all that sort of stuff. He kind of looks like, okay, that guy could replace Brandon Graham. Then you flip back to 2023 tape, and it's like, oh, this guy plays a little more stand up. And he looks about 10 pounds lighter. And holy cow, that second gear and the ability to kind of flatten against an offensive tackle and close in on a quarterback. Whoa, that's something you just don't really see on his A&M tape. What's that about? So I think there's some potential to tap into with Nick Scorton. Honestly, if you flip these 2 years, 2024, it looked more like it did, but that was in 23. And then his 23 tape's the last thing we have. He's probably off the board 17, 20 picks ago, if not a little bit more. So it is interesting to kind of look at that just when you look at the 2 years of tape. And if you were to flip them, where his projection would be versus where it actually is right now. But for the Eagles, it's like, dude, they have one of the best defensive line coaches in the entire NFL. Clint Hurt is their D-line coach, but they also have a great edge coach whose now name is escaping me, son of another, former NFL coach. Daniel Jeremiah was tweeting about it not too long ago. So look at his Twitter and you'll get the name. But him working with Nick Scorton, who I think has some untapped potential that maybe people aren't looking at right now, I think he should still go in the first round. And the Eagles, that's the team for him to go to. All right. We got to pick it up a little bit. We got 100 picks to go through. We're only at 33. To the Cleveland Browns, Amarian Hampton. I mean, what better way to keep a strength to strength? Move from Nick Chubb to Amarian Hampton. He totally fits that blocking scheme. And whoever the quarterback is, leaning on that run game, that's something you're going to want to do if you're Cleveland. New York Giants, let's go with Alec Ayumanor. This team could use a prototypical X and a big body threat, whether it's in the red zone or even between the 20s. One more weapon for the likes of a Cam Ward, plus freeing up Malik Neighbors goes a long way to help diversify the portfolio of that offense. Tennessee Titans, I'm going to go with Donovan Ezaraku. Man, I just love Ezaraku. This is a team that could use some more edge reinforcements. Love the size, love the length, coming off 16.5 sacks at Boston College. Honestly, I think Ezaraku could slip into the late first round once we get to April. All right, on to the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're actually going to have a couple of corners come off the board and back-to-back picks here. Also, I'm going to start flashing up your picks so you can see what we did last time out. But I'm going to go with Siobhan Ravel for the Jaguars. Think they could definitely use some more reinforcements there on the outside. Partnering up his ball skills and athleticism with a guy on the other side who's a great athlete in his own right, Tyson Campbell. If they want to continue to play man coverage, that's the corner tandem to do it with. All right, to the Raiders. They're fresh off taking Shadur Sanders. And here, we're going to give them Trey Amos here at pick number 37. And this is just a team that, have you watched their secondary? I think they have the lowest coverage grade of the last 3 years using PFF cover grade. So, yeah, it's just been a bad secondary for too long. They haven't properly addressed it yet. So now is the time. Trey Amos, to me, a guy that left the Senior Bowl early with an injury, but the tape checks out to me. And the first 2 days of the Senior Bowl, I see a guy that should go definitely in the top 50, maybe even late first round. All right, back to the New England Patriots here at 38. I'm going to go with Ariante Ursary. Just a duh statement of the century, but if you watch the Patriots, offensive line is a major need for this team. Ursary looked pretty good at the Senior Bowl. Still, he's a little stiff in the hips, sometimes loses that leverage battle, but he moves really well, has good long arms, plays with good play strength too. That definitely looks like a left tackle of the future potentially for an NFL team. All right, back to the Chicago Bears here at 39. That's where we have Jack Sawyer come off the board. I mean, this is your kind of base 4-3 type of end, not a special athlete, but to me, a little bit better of an athlete than JTT. Pairing him up with Montez Sweat gives you two ends that stop the run at a really high level, while also getting you a guy who's really figured it out in regards to batting passes, has a high motor, plays with good play strength too, can win with that bull rush. A lot of things to like there about Jack Sawyer, especially if you're getting him in the second round. To the New Orleans Saints, let's go with Tyleik Williams, one of my favorite, interior defensive linemen in this class. He's just a guy that in a loaded group, he kind of falls down the board sometimes. And for the New Orleans Saints, I mean, how could you not be excited about this? Imagine a better version of Kalen Saunders, no disrespect to him, and also had a great pick this year. No disrespect to Saunders, but I think Tyleik Williams is just a better version of that player. And maybe it frees up Brian Brzee, who, more wins with athleticism. Maybe that frees him up to kind of focus on being a pass rusher too. So I'd be curious to see how that relationship could kind of help one another out. All right, we're back to the Chicago Bears. Now on the clock at 41. And you know what's interesting? Daniel Jeremiah is mocking Tyler Booker in the first round of the Chicago Bears. So maybe I'm low man on Tyler Booker. He's been a top 3 interior offensive lineman for me this whole cycle. But maybe I'm just not having him drafted high enough. I really like the player, really like the mauler and the play strength, good enough functional movement skills to kind of play a little bit of both zone and gap. But I think for the Bears, man, desperate need to find a left guard upgrade. Tyler Booker, day one, becomes their starter at that position. All right, here we go. New York Jets. When all said and done, Jackson Dart, which, by the way, I think the next podcast episode, we're not going to go total shill and go 3 straight mock drafts. But before we get to the combine, I'm going to do my quarterbacks episode. And just a little bit of a teaser there. Jackson Dart will not be my quarterback 3. We'll get to who that is a little bit later on this mock. But that being said, there's a lot to like there from Dart. He's got his hive, for sure. And if you're the New York Jets, let's say you go into next year starting Tyrod Taylor, understanding, hey, this is a transition period. We have a year to play with here. Could you draft and develop and try to work with Jackson Dart, get him a better standing point of what you're looking at across the field, what the proper reads are, 1 to 2 to 3, how to diagnose a coverage pre-snap, all those things that I think, it's on easy mode when you're playing with Lane Kiffin in college, a whole lot harder at the next level. So buying him a year, working behind Tyrod Taylor, who's also a high IQ player, maybe that's the landing spot there for the Jets. If, Tyrod Taylor is who they end up starting next year. We'll see. A lot to be figured out, but I do like that landing spot. He is the 3rd quarterback off the board here in this mock, but he would not be my choice for being the 3rd quarterback off the board. Anyways, on to the San Francisco 49ers here at 43. This is where I'm going to have Derek Harmon come off the board. I don't mean to keep having him fall to this spot, but he could certainly go in the first round. Harmon to me is more like good player than like potential great. But nevertheless, there's a lot to like. I thought he got better as a run defender over the course of the year. That was kind of my concern. A few games early on, I was like, yeah, he looks like he's down 10, 15 pounds and he doesn't fully know how to anchor yet. But by the end of the year, I feel better about him as a run defender. And I think there's a lot of good to his pass rush repertoire. Can win with quicks, going across the face of guards, has power in his profile. Hands are pretty quick. But I just don't know if I see elite like I see with some of the other guys. Like not an elite get-off like Walter Nolan. Not elite hand speed like a Mason Graham. And that's why I kind of have him a little bit lower in my age rankings right now, or my IDL rankings. Right now, he's my IDL 4, just ahead of Tyreek Williams and just ahead of Darius Alexander. But those 3 guys are really going to be battling for who's 4, 5, and 6 the rest of the way. But still really like the value there. Partnering him up with Javon Hargrave, I think, is a great spot for him to go. Keep him on the West Coast. And I think as he gets more and more comfortable at 310 pounds, the balance and some of the things that I think just need to get cleaned up, I think he'll become better at just with some time. All right, Dallas Cowboys up next here at 44. Let's give him that running back. We didn't go running back round 1, so let's go with Quinshon Judkins. I actually think he's kind of the between the tackles complement to Rico Dowdle. That makes a lot of sense. Dowdle also a pretty solid pass catcher too, so I think you can kind of lean on Judkins for the early down stuff. Dowdle for 3rd down, passing down situations there, and that becomes a pretty solid 1-2 punch there in the backfield in Dallas. All right, Indianapolis Colts are next up. I'm going to go with Mason Taylor here. Another team that, we often go tight end first round, but dude, there's options aplenty once you get into the 2nd and 3rd round. And we're going to have a ton of tight ends come off the board here over the next handful of over the next 10 picks, really. So Mason Taylor, instead of going around 1 tight end, you plug him in. He can play in line, solid enough as a blocker, just a fluid, smooth athlete. Makes it look easy. Great hands to go with it and can win at all 3 levels of the field. And of course, great genes to go with it. Yeah, that's a great landing spot for him, but also if the Colts don't go tight end round 1, that's about as ideal fit you're going to get. Him, Arroyo, or Gunnar Helm, I think all makes sense in 2nd round for the Colts. Back to the Atlanta Falcons now. I was trying to figure out a way where I could get the Rams back into this 3-round mock and give them Jack Besh, but ultimately I just don't see him getting out of the 2nd round. And if I can't get him to the Rams, why not give him to a Rams disciple and Zach Robinson? That sounds really fun to me. There's definitely some skill set overlap there with Drake London, like the routes that he runs really well and whatnot. But at the same time, like the Rams, Cooper, Kupp, and Puka Nacua, there's a lot of similarities with those two, but with those tight sets and attacking the sidelines, and now with a quarterback with the velocity and the arm strength to get it out wide, I think it can work with some skill set overlap. And at this point, no disrespect to Darnell Mooney, pretty good value signing, but just a different player. I think I might just be more interested in what Besh could do long-term versus Mooney. And I would certainly take Besh over Ray McLeod. So at the worst, your receiver trio now is London, Besh, and Mooney. And I'm really liking that if I'm a Falcons fan. I think he's a really good fit for that Rams. Again, if you're going to trade Cooper Kupp, that's kind of, I'm like, how can I get Jack Besh to the Los Angeles Rams? But if not the Rams, give him to Zach Robinson, a Rams disciple. All right, Cardinals, you're next up here at 47. So I'm going to go Donovan Jackson. They just hired Jason Fry from Ohio State to be their offensive line coach. So yeah, Donovan Jackson, that one makes a ton of sense. Continuity there with Fry. They also need a left guard like nobody's business. Plug and play option there. Back to the Miami Dolphins here at 48. TJ Sanders has stayed on the board for a little too long for my liking. There he goes off the board. This team has not found a replacement for Christian Wilkins. Love the first step for TJ Sanders. Plays with a ton of power as well. NFL-ready run defender with some flashes there as a pass rusher. Certainly worth investing somewhere in the top 50 on TJ Sanders. To the Cincinnati Bengals, you're on the clock here at 49. And speaking of those tight ends, I mean, this is a team now for a while. Like, hey, can we find this team a tight end? Can we get better at that spot? Imagine like just a true tight end version of Mike Gesicki, and you might have something that kind of looks like Elijah Arroyo. Really good athletes, fluid moving in space, big frame. I think Arroyo's definitely a better blocker. So again, like the inline flexibility that you get with Arroyo that you're just not going to get from Gesicki is already there. So Arroyo, if he stays healthy, like he did this last year at Miami, he then crushed at the Senior Bowl, you're getting a really nice pass catching option. So depending on what happens with T. Higgins, this could be where some of those targets ultimately fall to in that Cincy offense. All right, pick number 50. It's the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to go with Carson Schwessinger, the linebacker from UCLA. Change of direction skills and the ability to fly downhill. This guy is a weapon. I just think Mike McDonald will look at that skill set and see, he'll see a missile, quite literally, and just a weapon he can use in the middle of that defense. Not quite an agent of chaos like Jalen Walker. I don't think he's that good of a pass rusher, but he does bring some of that upside. And this guy's ability to just split blocks because of how slippery he can be. It really is something else. So potential off-ball linebacker 1. Right now, he's my off-ball linebacker 2 right there with Jahad Campbell, which speaking of which, he's going to be the pick here at pick number 51. But I really like Carson Schwessinger. And the more I watch, the more I'm like, yeah, this guy cannot make it out of the second round. No shot. But then we get to Jahad Campbell there being the pick for the Bucs. I think Todd Bowles wants to reinforce that front seven. I think he thought it was a better unit than it actually was last year. So we get some edge help. And now we get Jahad Campbell who can be used as a blitzer. But I also really like him just as a coverage player too, ability to crash downhill, reinforce against the run. I think his athleticism shows more straight line or gaining depth backpedaling. I am kind of curious to see the change of direction numbers. What's the 3 cone of the combine? That will go a long way to kind of reinforcing, is he my off-ball linebacker 1? Is he in my top 3 but not 1? Some of those measurements and some of those testing numbers I'm just kind of waiting to get. But big fan of Jahad Campbell, real weapon to be used there for Todd Bowles, who wants to use those linebackers in a variety of ways. And we're going to go ahead and get one more linebacker off the board. Speaking of guys who want to use linebackers as weapons, Vance Joseph in Denver. I really like Demetrius Knight Jr. Just didn't get him in my last mock, but definitely should be a guy that's in consideration for somewhere here in the second round. Great change of direction skills. Love the movement skills, sideline to sideline speed, good in coverage, but also in a willingness to fly downhill and be a factor in the run game, despite not being the biggest dude, but we talk about this in all the mocks. That's just the way linebackers are built nowadays. So I like Demetrius Knight. He had this one rep at the Senior Bowl I really wanted to post, but he's so athletic. He flies out of frame and it's a toss right, and then all of a sudden he flies back into frame. You're not supposed to hit at the Senior Bowl, but a little shoulder to the running back. He falls down, and you hear the pop throughout the stands and the oohs and ahs thereafter. Lots of like Demetrius Knight. And man, like you look at that top 4 group, because Chris Paul's going to go in the second round here not too long from now. That top 4 off-ball linebacker group is actually pretty nice little solid unit within this draft class. So if you're looking for some reinforcements in the middle of your defense, the second round might be the spot for you to grab them. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers, you're on the clock here at 53. I'm really looking at the Steelers as potential high bidders on Milton Williams. But if they can't get Milton Williams, I think Darius Alexander's a guy that they're going to focus in on in the second round. And, Mike Tomlin at one point was talking to Darius Alexander at the Senior Bowl too, so it was kind of cool for me as a Steelers fan to be like, oh, what's going on there? But I do think flexibility and versatility across that entire defensive line. I like the Toledo tape. I just was kind of hesitant to see how that would fare against bigger competition and, guys coming from bigger schools. But, dude, he checked that box. I think he's the third biggest overall winner out of the Senior Bowl. I really do, because against a step up in competition, the explosiveness at the line of scrimmage checked out. The hand speed was fantastic, a variety of move to go with it, and just absolute dog, full motor. He has counter moves to go off it if he gets beat. He's on the older side. He's 25, but at the same time, I think he's, quote unquote, move in ready from that standpoint, where just plug and play this guy. And he can play all across the defensive line. He showcased that at the Senior Bowl. Just find a spot for him and he'll make plays. And I think the Steelers will be like, yeah, that's the guy that we need. And we're going to move on from Larry Ogunjobi. So like he immediately backfills that, but also Hayward can't play forever. So a potential successor along with Keanu Benton there on the inside of the Steelers. All right, Chargers here at pick number 54. I'm going to have Gunnar Helm come off the board here. I think this team doesn't have to go tight end round 1. And this is case in point why. You go Gunnar Helm in the second. I think there's reason to believe he'll be a better blocker the next level. Texas asks a lot of those guys getting on the move, and sometimes that's just tougher at the college level when you're still being coached up and figuring it out, but has the size and athleticism, I think, to do it. Just needs some refinement there. But a big friendly target who moves well for his size, and he is a tank to bring down after the catch. He just adds a little bit more of that offense, and all of a sudden you look at the Chargers, and it's not just Ladd McConkey, it's yak weapon and a potential field stretcher in Luther Burden. Oh, and an absolute monster to bring down after the catch in Gunnar Helm. Oh, all of a sudden, this offense is feeling really well balanced in Los Angeles. Green Bay Packers on the clock at 55. I'm going to go Jaden Higgins here. I kind of said the same thing about Jack Best in the last mock, but what if we just took the targets that Christian Watson gets and just gave it to I hate to say this, but a better player. And Jaden Higgins is a better player. He's not going to be the athlete that Watson is, but deep shots, who do I feel better about coming down with it? Jaden Higgins, not a doubt in my mind. Also, I think he brings a little bit more prowess as a route runner, right? Like, it's not, again, winning with special athleticism. It's just understanding leverage and body positioning. And also, he's got a big frame and utilizes it. That's another part of Watson's game. He's got a big frame, but I think I've seen throughout his entire career him get one pass interference call to go his way. There might be some more in there. I'm not watching every Packers game fully intently, fully focused, fully locked in, but I've only seen once, maybe twice over 3-4 years now. I think Jaden Higgins, you will feel his size a lot more for the Packers than you do with Christian Watson. I think it's worth the drop off in athleticism there. And I think they're just looking for an alpha. And I'm not saying Higgins is that, but I think he's certainly better than Watson and maybe moves that receiving core in the right direction. All right, Buffalo Bills, they got a couple picks here in the second round. Here at 56, Darian Porter, he just fell too far here. And this feels like what they want Kyer Elam to be, right? Like good size, good athleticism, checks the box there. But Elam's most comfortable playing man coverage. At least he was in college. And now I feel like he's got a shaken confidence right now with Buffalo. Darian Porter, I mean, there's a lot to say that he should be a man coverage corner, but his ball skills and his eyes and his instincts paired with, going to be a guy who probably runs sub 4.3, playing on the back end of that secondary. I really like that. Zone heavy defense. Let him be a playmaker. Let him use his eyes. Let him use his natural ball skills at his disposal. Love that fit there in Buffalo. It just comes down to, can he make it to 56? Not so sure about that, but he did here. Pick 57. I'm going to give the Houston Texans Wyatt Milam. This is a fit that I really liked in the first round. I think Milam got a little bit better over the course of the Senior Bowl. He started to get more comfortable playing on the inside, so he may not make it this far, but in this mock draft, he just kind of fell. He's definitely a guy that's going to have to move to the inside, and if he makes it there, the Houston Texans, I mean, that's the left guard they're looking for. I don't know if they'll stick with the, Shanahan disciple wide zone stuff now that Slowick's gone, but that being said, if they do, he fits it. But also Wyatt Milam, he ran a decent amount of gap scheme stuff at West Virginia. He said as much in our interview with him at the Senior Bowl. So I'm also comfortable that if they go more, man or gap scheme stuff, he'll still be able to fit into that just fine in Houston. All right, let's get to the Carolina Panthers here at 58. Back to the Carolina Panthers here now at 58. I'm going to actually double up on edge for this team. And part of it's just like, I'm looking at these guys staring me in the face. You could go Landon Jackson here. I'm fine with that. Uman Miela and JTT. So I'm just going to kind of go best player available. JTT to me is definitely an edge only, but their current edge tandem is DJ Wonnum and Jadeveon Clowney. And I just don't think those are long-term figures of that defensive line. So yes, we're doubling up at edge, but like they need it, in my opinion. And Shamar Stewart, again, it's kind of like Darius Robinson last year. He's reinforcements for your interior group and for your edge group. So don't overthink it. Just get another guy in that mix. And JTT is another guy that comes with a pretty high floor, so I wouldn't overthink it from that standpoint either. All right, let's get on to the Baltimore Ravens then here at 59. I'm going to go with Maxwell Hairston. Really like his click and close ability. Really nice athlete. Maybe on the smaller side, but nevertheless, I think he checks a lot of other boxes. To me, it looked really good at the Senior Bowl. This is, I think, your Brandon Stevens replacement there on the outside in Baltimore. To the Detroit Lions, I'm going to go with Jonas Savaiinaea. I think this is a team that's getting a little older on the inside. Kevin Zeitler hitting the free agent market. Jonah S. would be a perfect replacement for that. Plenty of lower body strength, both the anchor and pass pro, but also maul dudes in the run game. And he's held up at right tackle and pass protection. There's no reason for me to believe that it won't be a strength for him the next level when he moves inside. All right, Commanders now on the clock at 61. Wait a minute, small, undersized corner holding their own on the outside. Does that sound like Mike Sanders still? What about Quincy Riley? I think that's another really good option for that secondary. And ultimately, I do think Sanders still, he played well on the outside, but in a perfect world, let's move him back inside of the nickel where I think he'd be a game wrecker. That being said, I am someone who values the nickel more than probably most people on the planet, to be honest. But that being said, as I nudge my camera, apologies about that. I think you play Riley on the outside, paired up with Marshawn Lattimore, and then you get Sam still on the inside. The opposite of that, maybe Riley's your nickel corner. And honestly, with what I saw at the Senior Bowl, man cover skills, tenacity, just like ability to match guys bigger than him, but like physicality standpoint, didn't feel overmatched. I don't know if that fully makes sense, but he's given up 5 inches to Jaden Higgins, but it doesn't feel that way when you watch it. So he just comes with a ton of physicality, just like a dog in the fight. And maybe he's your nickel corner and you keep Sanders still on the outside. Either way you spin it, I like it a ton for the Washington Commanders. Buffalo Bills at 62. This is where I'm going to have Chris Paul Jr. come off the board. I think this team just needs to invest a little bit there at the linebacker position. Love his change of direction skills. I think he's a pretty solid run defender. Sometimes gets washed out at the second level, but he can be another one of these guys who's a missile flying downhill and willing to make some plays and TFLs for you. So really like Chris Paul's. Some added reinforcements as Matt Milano gets older. They lost Terrell Bernard last offseason. So looking to backfield that group and get a little bit younger, get a little cheaper at that spot as well. All right, on to the Kansas City Chiefs at 63. I'm going to go Omar Norman Lott. Ton of pass rush upside, so I love pairing him up next to Chris Jones. You've seen these teams on the defensive side where they have one game record on the interior, how much that changes the math and how they can be this like force multiplier. What if you get 2 of those guys and you're the Kansas City Chiefs and more often than not, you're playing with a lead? Just think about that. Norman Lott, not really a great run defender. I think he only had like 80 snaps against the run last year and like not that much more the year before. Actually, I think a couple less the year before that at Tennessee. So they take him off the field on obvious rundowns, probably for a reason. He doesn't look great against the run in those, handful of snaps. But working with Chris Jones can certainly figure that out. And they also have a guy like a Mike Dana. So maybe it's just a rotation, right? Like Dana gets the rundowns, Norman Lott gets the passing situations. If you're the Chiefs, again, more often than not, you're going to be playing with a lead. So like I'd be willing to take a shot on the guy who's not great against the run, but when we're up by 10 in the fourth quarter and we're looking to put this game away, serves a pretty vital spot for us on that defensive line. To the Philadelphia Eagles, future-proofing the roster, stop it. Don't tell me that's a Howie Roseman move. It absolutely is a Howie Roseman move. Cameron Williams, you draft him here. He's raw. He's a one-year starter. A lot of penalties, and when he gets beat, it's ugly. It's a bad rep. Like, of course, the Jack Sawyer forced fumble. Like that's the first thing that comes to everyone's mind. When he loses, it's a bad rep for sure. But learning behind one of the best right tackles, maybe the best right tackle of my lifetime, watching football, I think that's a pretty good mentor, right? And you don't also need to force him into a starting spot. So you draft him here in the second round, let him sit, develop for a year, maybe 2 years behind Lane Johnson. And then I think you got a guy who could be an absolute dude for you as one of your starting tackles. And plus him and Mailata, I mean, when it comes to like pure moving dudes off the line of scrimmage, keeping a strength to strength there in Philadelphia. Tennessee Titans into the third round. We actually got 2 picks over the next 4 for them. And this is going to sound insane, but I'm going to double up at receiver. Let's go with Xavier Restrepo. That's your Tyler Boyd replacement. Nice, easy, smooth route runner with sure hands. He's going to be a QB's best friend at the next level. Just make it easy. Again, Tyler Boyd replacement there for the Tennessee Titans. Back to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now let's go Landon Jackson. This Charles Omenihu type of long, lengthy, long arm, big wingspan. These types of guys are the Spagnuolo type of edge rushers. And Landon Jackson to me has been pretty consistent second round guy. So the fact he fell in the third round here, it's a little bit of BPA, but it's also a great Spagnuolo fit for that Kansas City defense. Back to Cleveland Browns here at 67. One to go interior defensive line elsewhere in the draft. We'll talk about that later on, but I'm going to go Alfred Collins. Tons of play strength. Love him as a run defender. Not the most special athlete, so TBD on what really the ceiling is there as a pass rusher. He is also a fifth-year senior, so like if he had more in there as a pass rusher, we probably would have seen it by now. But absolute dude on early downs and stopping the run. So I think that's a valuable add to the middle of the defensive line. You're at the top of the third round. Like it's okay taking a specialist here if you're the Browns there. Then we get back to the Tennessee Titans, and let's go with Jalen Royals. There's something smooth about watching Jalen Royals. Just fluid route runner. But also, like, when he's fully healthy, and there were points this year where he was banged up, obviously missed some time. And so I don't know if he was fully 100% at the Senior Bowl, but really interested to see what his 40 time is at the Combine if he's at 100% then. Because there's some, reps from, 2023 where it's like, this guy has nice long speed to him too. So love the route running, love the hands. Yes, comes from a smaller school, but the route running was fully put on display at the Senior Bowl. It matched up there with NFL expectations. Now the question is, how much speed do you have in the tank there? And if you're at 100%, like, what does it look like versus like, what is it at now, health wise, and what's that number at? So a lot to be figured out there, top end speed wise, but otherwise, like, you play Royals on the outside with Calvin Ridley and then Xavier Restrepo on the slot. If I'm Derek Carr, I'm feeling pretty good about that. And then also, like, it's a ready-made situation. We spent a first-round pick on an offensive line. Now we've got 3 receivers we like. If we draft a guy in 2026 and he eventually takes over for Derek Carr, that person's not being left out to dry like Will Levis was this year, and kind of Mason Rudolph off of that too. So like, it's a much better roster, much better situation for that young quarterback to step into. All right, let's get on to the New England Patriots at 69. We go Princely Umanmielen. It's a bit BPA. I think he came in probably about 10 pounds too heavy at the Senior Bowl, to be honest. I think that first step was a little lacking, but you still saw the bend on some of his reps and actually held up as a run defender. So there's certain trade-offs there with that weight number, but I kind of thought he'd be 245. He showed up at 265. So I think that 255 number that Ole Miss lists him at is probably the right weight for him. And if he gets down to it at the combine, he'll have an explosive showing. He'll look good there. He'll boost his stock. And then for the Patriots, you get this is your Uche replacement. TBD on what he is as a run defender, but 3rd and 10, you need someone to win a rep. The speed and the bend is there for Umanmielen, and he'll give off tackles plenty to work against there. To the Jags at pick number 70, I'm going to go with Jamari Caldwell. I'm a little bit late on the Jamari Caldwell train, and he will be certainly a lot higher than this on the PFF next time they update the board. He will not be at 200. But if you like Kenneth Grant and you haven't watched Jamari Caldwell yet, I'd really encourage you to go check it out. He almost feels like the poor man's Kenneth Grant of this year's class. 340 pounds, really nice athlete, and two gap, and be a true nose tackle, but also athletic enough and shows some flashes of pass rusher that you could probably get away with playing him a little bit at a 3 tech if you wanted to or felt the need to. So a lot to be used there for Jamari Caldwell, and I got him going in the top 70. How about that for a rise up the board for a guy that hadn't been really talked about much here on the pod, but got around to checking him out. There's a lot to like there in Jamari Caldwell. All right, let's get back to the New Orleans Saints here at 71. We go with Harold Fannin Jr. I think this team could just use an upgrade there at tight end, or you could use Juwan Johnson as the inline guy because that is kind of the concern with Fannin. 238 pounds. Can he play inline? I think he's a solid blocker, but he does it at Bowling Green. It's the lesser level of competition. What does that look like at the next level? TBD, but playing him as an H-back/fullback, use him in the slot, using him out wide, creating mismatches. That's what you want to do here. TBD on what that's going to look like. And, Kellen Moore has been a guy that I think is I don't think tight end's ever really super featured in his offense. So I don't know if Kellen Moore is really the play caller to maximize a Harold Fannin, but I think it's certainly worth the conversation. And, one to get that extra, there's that tier 3 group of tight ends. And I want to make sure Harold Fannin wasn't forgotten and left out of that bunch. I do think the Saints can get better there at tight end. All right. Pick number 72. I'm going to go with Xavier Watts to the Chicago Bears. Dennis Allen taking over as the defensive coordinator. A lot of single high coverage, a lot of cover 3, a lot of single high man. So Xavier Watts, Notre Dame ran the most single high of any college football team this year. So tailor-made fit there for that Dennis Allen defense in my eyes. All right, we get on to the Las Vegas Raiders then at 73. And with Chip Kelly coming over, this one's just an easy button selection right there. TreVeyon Henderson, they need more juice in that backfield. They get it with TreVeyon Henderson. Big play waiting to happen. Solid pass catcher, solid pass protector as well. And, of course, familiarity with Chip Kelly and the offense he wants to run. Back to the Carolina Panthers here at number 74. Now we're going to go to the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to go with Jalen Knoll. I think this team could just use an upgrade over someone like an Adam Thielen who's getting up there in age, doesn't have a ton of explosive ability, never really was, but certainly not now. Jalen Knoll can play inside and out, and I love him. He's got a great understanding, just a guy that watched a lot of film, can beat man coverage because honestly, that's easier for how quick he is and understanding leverage and against smart football player. But he's also really smart and knows how to find the soft spots and zones. You can use him as a yards after the catch weapon, use him in screens. He's also taking snaps out of the backfield. So again, a guy that brings some easy button elements to the offense, but also don't forget about his speed and what he can do over the top. So I really like him on top of Jalen Coker and Xavier Legette as the long-term pieces there in that wide receiver room. All right, 49ers are on the clock here at 75 with the Deebo Samuel requesting a trade, if I could speak. This one was easy. Savion Williams, you're going to see the Deebo comps out there, but Savion really is an interesting prospect. I think there's a lot of work to be done as a route runner. The routes run pretty wide, but also you look at his 2 touchdowns against ODU and you're like, oh, but that's natural ball tracking. There's a natural receiver in that body who's 6'5", 225, an absolute handful to be brought down after the catch. So how much can you work on him as a route runner and how much can you kind of just get away with him being a better athlete and a natural ball tracker at the next level? That's TBD. But for me, Shanahan's a master at getting his playmakers into space. And if you're going to move on from Deebo, this is the guy to backfill that spot with and let him put Savion Williams into space and let defenses try to bring him down. It will be a lot. It will be a handful, no doubt about it. Dallas Cowboys here on the clock at 76. I'm going to have Tez Johnson be the pick here. Smaller guy, 156 pounds, but if you just watch what he does at the top of the route, it's hard not to get excited thinking about what he could do at the next level, right? He's small, but if you're nowhere near him, what's it matter, right? So, it's going to be tough, and there's going to be a lot of teams who he's automatically off the board for because 156 that's the 3rd smallest weight in recent NFL history, modern NFL history, I think is what the stat was. So, he's an outlier, but he's also an insane route runner with great top-end speed. with Brian Schottenheimer coming in there, play action, under center stuff, like the play action, top of the route separation test Johnson could have on those shot plays could be a huge difference maker for Dallas. And you get him here in the third round. I think it's worth taking a shot on him if you're Schottenheimer and Dallas and go. Back to the New England Patriots at 77. I'm going to go with Ozzie Trapilo. So we drafted a left tackle in Ursary. Now we get Trapilo. Both these guys, like, they're so big that leverage can kind of be a bit of a concern with them. But also Trapilo, like, I think quick enough foot speed to kind of make up for that. The hands are pretty quick as well. Hand placement's really solid. Guy who's played both sides of the offensive line. Dad, passed away when he was 2, but like former offensive lineman at the NFL level. So you can see kind of the genes that have set in there. Big fan of Ozzie Trapilo. And I think right here in the third round, someone's going to get a rock solid starter onto their starting offensive line. All right, back onto the Arizona Cardinals. Now I'm going to go with Kyle Kennard. We drafted an interior defensive line, but also like, Dennis Gardeck, I'm pretty sure is a pending free agent. Ojulari's battled a couple injuries. They could probably just use some reinforcements there on the edge. Love Kyle Kennard. He's kind of like a jack of all trades, good at a lot of stuff, but not great at any one thing. But that being said, I think that plays well enough for Arizona. And honestly, they're starting to build enough depth to where I think you can get away with that as long as you're fresh. And adding Kennard into that mix, they're certainly going to have a deep enough rotation to consistently stay fresh. All right, Washington Commanders on the clock here at 79. I'm going to go with Pat Bryant. I think this team's looking for a number 2 receiver to complement Terry McLaurin. And Pat Bryant, man, he showcased enough wiggle and more nuance in his route running. And honestly, just a little bit more, I don't want to say athleticism, but a little bit more juice, a little bit more suddenness than maybe I was expecting just watching on tape. And maybe it's just finding that right weight that he can be a little bit more explosive, be a little bit more sudden at. But I think he gives you prototypical X size. He could also play some power slot for you, and that frees up Terry McLaurin to do a lot of other stuff in that offense. So imagine like an upgraded version of Noah Brown. I think that's kind of what you're hoping for here with the Pat Bryant pick at 79. All right, next up is the Indianapolis Colts. A little bit lower of a selection here. I still have to go back and do my safety read checks. So like TBD on where I'm going to be at with Eman Worry. But you got some, like Daniel Jeremiah, get him in the top first round, top 20, I think it was. And I think Mel Kiper Jr. had him in the first round of his mock as well. So I'm going to definitely have to go back and reevaluate the safety class and see where he falls into those rankings for me. But I really liked him as a box safety, potential like linebacker convert, but also really good at man coverage, matched up against tight ends, partially because of his frame, but also he's a good, solid athlete with that frame. So, going to the Colts, I just imagine, Nick Cross playing the over-the-top free safety, Eman Worry kind of being that Von Bell strong safety type for Lou Anarumo. That's kind of what I had in my mind there. But he ultimately can be a guy that goes a lot higher. Again, I still got to do my Eman Worry film check one more time, at least one more time. All right, speaking of the Cincinnati Bengals and Von Bell and all that stuff, they're on the clock here next up, and I'm going to give them Aeneas Peebles, if I can spell Peebles right. I think that interior defensive line could use some added reinforcements. Peebles is not going to help them against the run, so it doesn't really move the needle in that respect, but on 3rd and 8, he definitely makes a difference there. He is just a guy who wins with quicks, splits gaps, explosive and violent hands to go with a lot of guys where that kind of hits the mark, but he does it at sub 290, so he's definitely a specific type of defensive lineman and a specific type of guy that you want as part of rotation. I don't know if he'll give you 3-down value, but for the Bengals, they don't have that interior 3rd and 10, pin his ears back, get to the quarterback from the shortest distance, right? Quickest place from A to B is a straight line. Him from the interior on 3rd and 10 is a whole lot better than the guys they currently have on that roster. Seattle Seahawks at 82. Here we go. A couple of quarterbacks going to come off the board here. Tyler Shook is going to be my quarterback 3. I just think you look at what he did this last year at Louisville, the arm strength, better athlete than you would expect for someone that size. Liked what I saw at the Senior Bowl placement there, as well as pretty much all year for Louisville, was rock solid. He's got one of the better arms in this class, and an offense that against that level of competition is much easier to project the next level than Jackson Dart is. Dart's either going to be QB4 or quarterback 5. I got to go back and check out Will Howard, but that's what it's going to come down to. Which one of those guys comes in at 4, which one of those guys comes in at 5. But Tyler Shook, yes, he's older, and yes, there's medical concerns, and I'm not a doctor, so I can't fully speak to that. But just off what I see, I like him enough to where, like, day 2, there's a potential shot that he becomes an NFL starter somewhere down the line. And for the Seattle Seahawks, Clint Kubiak coming in as the offensive coordinator, under center play action. That's the environment Tyler Shook will thrive under. So you don't have to force him on the field. You ride out Geno for the last year of this contract. You turn the keys over to Tyler Shook to see what you have there in a 3rd-round pick. It worked well one of the last few times that Seattle took a quarterback in the 3rd round. I think that was the last time they took a QB in the 3rd. But not guaranteeing that Shook's going to be Russell Wilson. Certainly play different. They certainly look different from a body standpoint. But I am kind of there with Tyler Shook. I'm a big fan of his game. Honestly, after re-watching him, that's how I wanted to feel about Jackson Dart, but I didn't, and I felt that way about Tyler Shook. So that just kind of shows where I'm at right now with these quarterbacks, and I have him going to be the potential Geno replacement in Seattle. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you're next up. I'm going to give you some safety help because it feels like they just have not been able to find that other safety to complement Antoine Winfield Jr. I think Kevin Winston Jr., whether it's split safety, box safety, single high, over the top free safety, he fits into it. So ultimately, I think he's good enough across the board. That gives you the flexibility to move Antoine Winfield wherever you want to use him. He's another one of those guys. Agent of Chaos doesn't, not at linebacker, but at safety. Agent of Chaos, move Antoine Winfield Jr. around. I think Kevin Winston Jr. gives you the flexibility to do just that. Dolphins on the clock here at 84. We're going to actually go a couple of different secondary picks here. I just think they need to get better in the nickel, and I think Sebastian Castro brings that to them. Also, Anthony Weaver, second year as a DC, coming from Baltimore, where they had Kyle Hamilton during his time there, playing in the nickel. Like, I think he'll see that as a valuable enough position to warrant a top, 84 pick in that spot. And Sebastian Castro, to me, probably the best nickel in this class. Best pure nickel, had some nice reps, especially on day 3 at the Senior Bowl. Just kind of a little bit of a down year for him in Iowa. I don't know if it was a health thing, but the coverage stuff was a little bit shakier. But the Senior Bowl added some confidence back into my, buy-in to Sebastian Castro. Pittsburgh Steelers, and here we go. The other quarterback coming off the board here in the 3rd round, Will Howard. Under center play action. Like, that's an Arthur Smith fit. So Shook or Howard, I think like Arthur Smith would be like, yep, that's the guy. And I could just see a world where they bring back Fields on a 2-year deal, and then they go get a different, under center play action, chuck the ball deep down the field type of guy. And it's not Russell Wilson. He'll go play elsewhere. They'll draft a guy in the 3rd round to go be that guy, Tyler Shook or Will Howard. I really do think that's the route the Steelers are going to end up going. And I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic, but, drafting a quarterback this year isn't necessarily ideal. That being said, I don't think it's as bad a class as like 2022, so I'd rather draft the 3rd rounder this year than some of the 3rd rounders from that class for sure. All right, to the Los Angeles Chargers here at 86. I couldn't leave this mock without giving Harbaugh one of his old Michigan boys. Josiah Stewart, to me, I think they bring back Khalil Mack. I think he likes it in LA. Tuli Tuipulotu becomes the other starting edge rusher. And then Josiah Stewart becomes the 3rd down DPR, 3rd and long specialist, and you're moving Tuipulotu probably to the inside to rush there. So I think he's that 3rd edge rusher. There's a way to get all 3 of those guys on the field. And then also, whenever Khalil Mack does hang it up, you have that guy kind of waiting in the wings, waiting to become a starter there too. So I really like that. And of course, the Michigan connection is certainly there as well. All right, Green Bay Packers here at 87. Another fit that I like a ton. This team has got to get better at center. It has been clear the last 2 years, Josh Myers is the weak link. Marcus Bowe, I thought there was some solid tackle play there at the Senior Bowl, but I certainly like him as an interior player more. I think that's just kind of where his foot speed kind of puts him. And I specifically like him in center, to be honest with you. So kind of in more of it's like a tackle. There's just so much more that he has to defend out to his outside shoulder. On the inside, you're shrinking the strike zone in which he could be attacked from. Same case there for a center, and I think that's where his movement skills are better seen versus having to slide and try to deal with edge rushers that get underneath his tackles and things like that. Just kind of validating why I think interior offensive line more the direction I see Marcus Bowe going versus offensive tackle. But he does give you some flexibility there, and that's certainly something the Packers have coveted. Guys who can play multiple positions. So further, why it's a good fit there for Bowe going to the Packers at 87. All right, the Jaguars are next up. This is the team that, with Brandon Sheriff hitting free agency, Tate Ratledge, that's a plug-and-play replacement there for Brandon Sheriff. I feel like all the Georgia interior offensive linemen are getting a little underranked right now. I like Ratledge the most. I like Wilson, and then Fairchild's pretty solid. I wouldn't hate him in the 4th round. But, I feel like nobody's talking about them, and they're all just, solid, steady players. So maybe that's why. They're just not sexy. But I think they're solid, steady players that become pretty quick starters at the next level. So that's exactly the case. Let's say Sheriff walks. I think Tate Ratledge plug-and-play there at right guard in Jacksonville. Houston back on the clock here at 89. I really wanted to go running back here, but then that would be all offense. And I don't know if I can fully commit to that for D'Amico Ryans. So instead, I'm going to go with Jordan Phillips here. Really liked what I saw and hit out of his one-on-ones at the Shrine Bowl. Plays with good leverage and just has no shortage of power. Shorter arms, a little sawed off there, but as a run defender and the power he brings to be a potential pocket pusher, he's definitely checking that box. And then let's just leave it to D'Amico Ryans to see what else, what more there is to tap into in Jordan Phillips' game. But that's the landing spot that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that's a team that, one interior defensive line guy, all of a sudden that D-line can take a huge step. And it's already a unit that got a lot better last year. But one more guy on the inside, and I think that all of a sudden looks like, whoa, that's a house of a defensive line. To the Rams here at pick number 90. I know I gave them Jaire Alexander at the start of this video with a trade to Green Bay. But I think Noah Williams as the other outside corner. This has not been a team that's been like afraid of drafting guys who are maybe a little bit small, but I don't think Noah Williams is that. But like just speaking in general, like not a team that's afraid to draft a smaller corner. So of the other guys available, maybe there is something to be considered there with someone like a Kobe Bryant, who's a little bit slighter in frame, hasn't really scared off, or even like Jacob Parrish, who's 5'10", 180. That hasn't really worried the Rams. But I'm going to have them go with Noah Williams here. He's also a really good tackler. I think he flies around the field. I love him in zone coverage. And that's going to be primarily what the Rams are busting out. A lot of cover 3, a lot of cover 4. So Williams plus Jaire Alexander on the outside, Quentin Lake there in the nickel. With one offseason's worth of work, all of a sudden that secondary starts to look a lot better for the Los Angeles Rams. To the Baltimore Ravens here at 91. I'm between two guys here, and this is tough because they're also two completely different players. But it comes down to really 3 players. Jordan Burch, Jared Ivey, Q Robinson's good too. I also like Ashton Gelati. Baron Terrell's not bad either, but more of a 4th-round guy to me. But Burch or David Walker, I'm screwed. I'm going to go David Walker, edge rusher from Central Arkansas. I just think the Ravens need a killer, like a 3rd down mercenary, just a guy to finish plays. Go in there and do the dirty work. Like I think they got, Adisa Isaac they drafted in the 3rd round last year. So again, maybe it's Burch, a guy you can move from outside on early downs, move him inside in passing situations. Maybe it is Jordan Burch here. Maybe that's the move. Because the other guys they drafted, Ajabo, he's edge only. Adisa Isaac, that's edge only. So maybe Burch is the flexible piece they're looking for. Let me know what you would do as a Ravens fan. But, dude, day 3, that's all I can think about with David Walker, man. Day 3 at the Senior Bowl, he was just fantastic. And hadn't really had a whole lot of one-on-one reps the first 2 days. So day 3 was the day to get to see David Walker. And he was awesome. Shorter, but the arm length checks out. And he kind of has this Elvis Dumervil, speaking of, Ravens, former Raven Elvis Dumervil. He's just got this natural ability to win leverage with that shorter frame, but longer arms, and no shortage of power, first step juice, hands are quick. And honestly, he's got enough moves to where I think he could play and be a solid pass rush contributor right away at the next level too. So man, like the more I watch David Walker, the more I like, small school guy, but he looked the part on day 3 at the Senior Bowl. So I'm going to give the Ravens a killer because I don't think Ajabo's turned into that. TBD on Adisa Isaac. I think David Walker's the 3rd and 10, like, oh God, they just put him on the field. As a Steelers fan, like that's the guy I would look at and be like, oh man, oh Jesus, please have mercy on us right here. So that's the dude I think they could use, but also maybe it's Jordan Burch. All right, anyways, a couple more picks to get through here. New York Jets here at 92. This is where I'm gonna have Kobe Bryant come off the board. You got DJ Reed hitting free agency, smaller corner, has a little bit more weight to his mass, but I can see a world where Aaron Glenn just likes the dog in the fight. He's not worried about the size of the dog, but the size of the dog that's in the fight. Not worried about the size of the dog, but the amount of fight in the dog. There we go. That's the saying. And Kobe Bryant, dude, there's no shortage of fight within that guy. Again, slighter frame, smaller weight, not ideal there, but solid length, click and close ability, and not going to let you get through a rep without him talking to you too. So I can kind of see where Aaron Glenn's like, that's a guy I can work with. And that could be the guy that replaces DJ Reed in that secondary. New Orleans Saints. I'm going to go with Jaden Ivey here. So this could be Ivey or Burch. I'm cool with that. Again, both these guys who probably playing on the edge early downs, moving inside on passing situations, or you could even just refer to them as 3-4 DNs. They could kind of fit in that. But nickel's kind of the new base, so that's why I like to say outside on early downs, inside for passing situations. And I think Ivey definitely is that. And this is a team that's just still trying to figure out that defensive line. And I know we went IDL earlier. Ivey, a different position there and a different flavor to hopefully be a compliment to Granderson and some of the other guys they already have there. But Cam Jordan can't play forever. Isaiah Foskey's, still waiting to see it. Peyton Turner's about to hit free agency. So adding one more guy into that edge group, I think makes a lot of sense there for the Saints. Back to the Cleveland Browns here at 94. I really deliberated on this pick here, but I'm going to go with Quinn Ewers, and I'm just going to have some faith that they can draft and develop him. To me, I think he throws too much with his arm. Inconsistent touch, he throws a pretty ball with touch on it, but he also underthrows a lot of passes that he shouldn't because he has plenty of natural arm talent. I do think you see some of that velocity when thrown over the middle of the field. But he just doesn't consistently have a good base underneath him. And again, I think he's throwing more with his arm down the field than he is with his feet. So I feel like it's just going to take some retooling, and maybe, he can go to Cleveland. They use Kirk Cousins as a starter for a year, find a way to get out of the Deshaun Watson contract. And then they've cleaned up Quinn Ewers and they're turning the keys over to him. I know I'm leaning on a lot of ifs, a lot of asterisks, with that, if this goes right, this could happen, a lot of hypotheticals there, but it's one of the few landing spots where I'm like, Kevin Stefanski's a good coach. Bringing in Kirk Cousins, could he kind of mentor him? They don't need him to play right away if that's the case. one of the better landing spots in my eyes for Quinn Ewers. And I think NFL teams are still going to be bullish on him, and he'll probably still have the chance to go somewhere in the top 100. All right, pick number 95. I'm going to give the Kansas City Chiefs Trey Harris. Yeah, not my favorite player in this class, but like undeniable size speed athlete. And at this point in the draft, like worst comes to worst, he's probably your Marquez Valdez-Scantling for this team. And it does feel like that's a guy that they could certainly add in that room and see some added value from. So just take a shot on him, and maybe there's something more to him. It's kind of like the Jackson Dart stuff. It's just hard to tell within that Lane Kiffin offense. They make it difficult. So TBD, he's definitely a hard one to evaluate, but it's undeniable that he's a big body target who can work down the field, pretty solid in the air, trying to catch the football and catch spots. And he's also going to have good speed. Like, as long as he's healthy, he's going to test well, whether it's the combine or the pro day. Whenever he's fully healthy, he's going to have some good athletic testing. So for the Chiefs there, worst comes to worst, he's your next MVS. Philadelphia Eagles here at 96. You know, Jeffrey Bassa had a pretty solid week at the Senior Bowl. Really like his sideline-to-sideline speed, smart football player, willing against the run. So, like, a linebacker there just in case, you know, Nakobe Dean is the same after the injury, just in case they lose Zach Bond, who was there on a one-year deal. I like adding that guy, one more guy to have in the room just in case. Or even if you get both those guys back and Dean does come back 100%, what happens when the next Nakobe Dean injury happens, right? Or something like that. So I think next linebacker waiting in the wings there with Jeffrey Bassa. All right, let's get on to pick number 97, the Minnesota Vikings. This is where I'm going to have Jacob Parrish come off the board. They just have a ton of defensive backs leaving potentially in free agency. If I had to guess, they'll get Cameron Bynum back. And then the corners were kind of TBD on it. So I definitely want to get him a corner here. Small, undersized, but he's feisty, and he does not. Like, he will not let you think that he's smaller, because, like, he will play above that. I don't think it was, like, the standout Senior Bowl I was hoping it would be, but it's also, like, a week more catered towards receivers. And I don't think he, like, was embarrassing either. It wasn't like Kobe Bryant, the Penn State corner, who just, like, the entire last draft cycle, just, like, one step at a time, destroyed his draft stock. But specifically the Senior Bowl, he just was a turnstile and was just he was a problem. Like, and it was a headache to kind of watch. I don't think it was that type of week for Jacob Parrish. Just kind of like a neutral week. Didn't raise his stock, didn't lose his stock either. So here at 97, I think solid value there for a team that needs to add to that cornerback room. All right, Miami Dolphins here at 98. Like I said, we're going to go doubled up here in the secondary. Andrew Makuba, I think this team could definitely get better at free safety. Both their safety play was just a problem last year in Miami, simply put. Makuba, after the transfer from Clemson to Texas, I thought he was just a new football player, way more decisive. It felt like his instincts played, plus his athleticism. He's going to be a good tester. I think there's a lot of single high potential there, but also more than enough willingness to come flying downhill and be a factor in the run game too. So I like Makuba there for the Miami Dolphins. Pick number 99, San Francisco 49ers. Speaking of those Georgia interior offensive linemen, Jared Wilson, I think that's your potential starting center of the future. Love his movement skills. Probably not the best 40 time of any of the centers, him or Gray Zabel, I would assume, depending, again, on how you classify these guys, guard versus center. But I think those are going to be the two fastest centers in this year's class. And I think that certainly calls out to the 49ers, who want to run a lot of wide zone, get those guys out in front and move them into space. Then we get to the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, we traded Cooper Kupp, so I wanted to get him a sharp route runner. I thought about Isaiah Bond, but you already got Tutu Atwell there. I decided to go the safe route here, quote-unquote safe route. I really like Ricky White as a route runner. We'll see what the athletic testing is like. But he also looks good to me from what I got to see here at the Shrine Bowl. Just a smooth, poised, natural route runner. Like, there's a lot of similarities to Jalen Royals. I think Royals just like a better version of Ricky White. But nevertheless, there for the Rams, if they move on for Cooper Kupp, like, They love guys who can get open on their own, and then the scheme helps them get furthermore open. So Ricky White to me kind of screams out like could be a potential really nice weapon there for the Los Angeles Rams. But we're scrolling through, letting you see every single pick one more time in our first 3-round mock here on the 32 Beat Writers YouTube channel, as well as our Twitter page. Let me hear your thoughts down below in the comments, or you can shoot me a DM at TJ Wengert. Who's your team, and what'd you think of the haul that I gave your squad? Also, feel free to shout it out. Who went too high? Who went too low? Let me hear all those thoughts down below, again, in the comments or in the replies to the mock draft on Twitter or in my DMs. I want to hear whatever your thoughts are. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're still building out this space for us. And, of course, check out the website, 32beatwriters.com, for all of our content in-house, but also things that we've accumulated from beat writers, covering their respective teams. But hope you guys enjoyed. Enjoy the rest of your day. Until next time, my name is TJ. We are signing off.